Okay, so in this video, I want to create an endpoint for a user to actually submit a vote to. So in this case, we're working with the review model, but we only want to allow a user to submit a simple vote. So the idea here is to show you some logic and show you how to send post data along with our API here. So let's go ahead and start by creating a new view here. And this view is going to be called project vote. So this is a view or an endpoint just to vote on a project. So I want to show you what data we need to send to actually create a vote. So we're going to create a new view here. It's going to take in request here, and we also want to pass in the primary key. So for the return here, we'll just do return, and then we're going to do response, and we'll add in the response in a second. So before we do that, I also want to set the decorator to make sure this is an API view. So we're just going to do API underscore view. And the method we're going to take here is going to be a post method. So we're not going to even send get data here. This view is going to require a post method because we are going to create a view. So in theory, we can also modify a vote with it, and we might want to add put here. But in this case, post is going to be fine just because of the way we're doing it. But if you wanted to, you could add in put like this. So we're just taking in a post request. And wow, I cannot fix that there. There we go. So we're taking in a post request, and this view will also require a user to be logged in. So we did this in the last video where we just do permission classes here, and we want to put that into a list, and this is going to be is authenticated. So we have a view that takes in a post request, and that user has to be authenticated, which means that we need a valid token to actually make sure that the user can vote. So let's go ahead and actually get the vote here. So we're first going to have to get the project that the user is going to vote on. So we'll just do project here, and this is going to be project.object.get, or objects. So I forgot the S there. So objects.get, and we're going to get this by the ID. So we're going to pass in primary key. So this is the project that we're voting on that needs to be without an S here, or without an S here. And we also want to get the user, and the user is going to be taken from request.user, and we also want the profile, so we're just querying up to the profile. And remember, this user is coming from the token, not the session anymore because of this decorator. So we're getting the user that is passed along in that token. Now I also want to get the data, and I showed you this when we were first introducing the Django REST framework. There is a property we can access called request.data. This isn't normally available, but because of this decorator, we can access the data. So that's going to be like the body of the data that's sent over. So let's just go ahead and print the data, and I want to show you what this looks like. So we'll get data. We want to print that out here, and let's go ahead and serialize the project so we can render this. So we do need to return something. So just underneath our project here, or underneath data, let's go ahead and create a serializer. So we'll do serializer, and this is going to be project serializer. So we already imported this earlier, so we have access to it. We're going to pass in the project that we want to serialize. So project, and many is going to be set to false. So we are getting a single instance of a project, and when we vote, we just want to return the project. So we want to be able to see the modified vote count here. So we'll just do serializer.data. So at this point, we're not doing anything. We just got the project, we're getting the user, and I just want to show you what this looks like and what the response will give us. So I'm going to save this. Let's go ahead and go into our URLs. We are still inside of our API folder, and let's create this endpoint. So in this case, I'm going to take this route here, and we'll paste that below, and I just want to add in vote. So we're going to projects, the project ID, and we're going into vote, and let's just do project vote. So that's going to be the view, project vote. So this is a view that takes in a post method. So I'm going to save both of these, make sure everything's working. Setting is not defined. So that was in the last video, and we added that. I just removed it. Now everything should be working. So let's go ahead and test this now, actually. So we'll add in a new request here, and this is going to be for our vote here. So we're just going to do projects/ID and then vote. So this isn't the actual route. This is just how I'm naming it. And this takes in a post request. So when I add in post here and save that, you're going to see this get updated on the left side. So let's go ahead and add in that URL here. So we're using that variable. We are in this environment. You just want to keep making sure you're doing that. And then I added that as a capital URL /API/projects. And then we need a project ID. So let's actually take, let me save this. Let's actually take this one here. So we'll take this project ID, copy that, and let's bring this down here and paste it in here. So API projects, and then we need to end that with the /vote and then close that off with the /. If I don't do that with the /, I think it's gonna cause an error. So credentials weren't provided. So at this point, we just need to send a token. So let's just add the /, the closing one here, and let's add in our credentials. So just in case my token already expired, let's go ahead and generate a new one. So I'm going to API /users token, and I'm going to generate a new one, even though I think I set it to a day, so it should be fine, but let's get a fresh token. So we're getting this token all the way to the end here. We'll close this out. Actually, I'll leave it open for now. And let's go into headers. And we need to send in an authorization token. So we'll just do authorization. It should have autofilled. So authorization, and then we're just doing bear, and then space, and then token. So we're pasting in that token. So now if I send that request, let's see, we're getting some kind of error. So it's not doing something for us. So we're sending a post request. We're going to API projects, the project ID, and then vote. And let's check our terminal to see what's going on here. So not found. It looks like the URL is not working. Projects. Oh, we need to close that with a /. So you may have noticed that. Let's try that one more time. So if I send that, there we go. So it didn't update anything because we didn't actually send any data or we didn't add any logic, but we did get back the project. So we can see data, and then that's just a dictionary at this point, or just JSON object here, and we're not actually doing anything with it. So let's actually send some data now. So let's go into body, and this is going to be like the post data that we're sending. So we're just going to go ahead and do raw here. So we'll just do raw, and then I want to send that as JSON data like this. So let's go ahead and create this object, and let's just do value, and I'm going to do this in double quotes. I think single quotes give us an issue. So we'll do value, and then the two options that we have for a vote are going to be up and down, I believe. So if I go into projects, models, it needs to be up or down. So I just wanted to confirm that. So let's just go ahead and do up. So we want to add an up vote. So if I look at the response at this point, let's see how many votes we currently have. So if I go to reviews here, we see that we see one upvote, and this might already be ours. So if I go to vote total here, let's just base it off of that. So there's 2 votes total. So if I send this, I get back the response, and I believe the upvote worked. So if I go into the terminal here, we can see data and then value up, and that's it. So this is what we're accessing here. So request.data gives us access to this. So we don't have to do like request.post, even though we could access it that way, but this just gives us access to that object. So at this point, I could change this to a downvote, modify that, or do whatever we want. But for this endpoint, all we need to do is just send in some body data, and that needs to be a value and an upvote. So if we were sharing this API with somebody and we're telling them how to work with it, we would tell them hit this endpoint, and I just want to save it, hit this endpoint, provide the ID, and then send in this object right here with this value. Now we do have an option to go into body, and we could do form data. So we could just do it as a key value pair. We could do value, and then we could just say down like this. So I hate that it's so zoomed in. I can't really show you what's going on here, but otherwise you won't see the actual text or the response here. So that will also work here. So we can remove that, but we can send it this way as form data or do raw and then JSON. So this is how you would actually do it if you were using JavaScript from the front end to send it. So this is what we'll actually do. So if I were to change this to a GET request and send it, we would get back this error telling us this method is not allowed. That's because we're only allowing post request at this point. So let's go ahead and actually finish up this logic. And I realized that the vote wouldn't get updated because we don't have the logic here. So we're just sending the data. So let's actually process this. So to get a vote, what we want to do is submit a vote, and we also want to make sure that if a user has voted, we want to find that vote or that review and modify it. So we're going to use a method called get or create. So in this case, we're just going to do review, and we also need to add in created. And I'm going to explain what's going on here in a second. So we need to import review. So let's see, that's going to be from project. In this case, reviews come from the project app. So we'll just do review, bring that in here. And let's just do review created, and then we'll just do review dot objects dot get underscore or underscore create. So there is a create method which will simply create a view, and we're going to use get or create. So in this case, we're just going to pass in the owner, and the owner is going to be the user that sent it. And then we want to pass in the project. So the project that we want to update, that's also a model on our review here. So owner, project, and then we need a value. So project is going to be the current project, and then the actual value here, we're going to leave it blank like this. So we're going to update the value in a second. So what's happening here is when we just create a user with these attributes will be created. Now, get or create will first check if this object already exists in the database. So for example, if this user already left a review on this project, so this we have a review in the database with this owner and this project, then it's going to get that user. So it's not going to create a new one. It's simply going to get a user and return back an object. If that user doesn't exist, it's going to create this user for us or create this review for us. So in this case, we set the value, the return value. This will either be the newly created review or it'll be the review that we got from the database. Now created will just be true or false. That's it. So that's why we need review and created. And this way we can change up the logic if we created a review. So we got the review or created it. After that, I want to go ahead and do review.value. And this will be set to data. And then we're going into value here. So we're getting the value from here. So this object right here, or this dictionary, whatever you want to call it, we're just getting that value and we're setting it. And then we're going into review.save. So we're just updating it, and that's it. Now to update the project count here, remember that we have a method here on a project where we just do get vote count, and it modifies this attribute, the vote total and vote ratio on a project. So when we call this method for the project, we just modify it and then we save it so it gets updated. So once we run that, we'll just do project.getVoteCount. And because we use the app property decorator, we don't have to trigger it as a typical function. So that's it. That's all we had to modify. So let's go ahead and test this again and actually see how this updates our project. So I'll scroll down here. Let's see the actual totals here. So vote ratio is 100 and we have 2 votes. So let's say I want to downvote this. So let's go ahead and do down, because I believe I already left a review here. Let's send that. Let's make sure everything went correctly here. And if I scroll down, now we see 2 votes with a vote ratio of 50%. So that means that this review existed in the database. We got the review in this case, so we queried it, and then we set the new value and we modified it. So that's it for this video. All we did was create a new view that takes in a post request and modifies a project vote. And we did this from Postman. We're going to do this from the front end soon, but that's it for now. In the next video, I want to take care of an issue that we might see, and this is going to be CORS configuration. So basically, anytime you're working with 2 different applications, if your request is not coming from the same server, you're going to see something called a CORS error, which stands for Cross Origin Site Scripting, I believe. And it's basically going to block an error so we can specify what URLs are allowed to even make requests to our API.